What if the reason you're stuck isn't a lack of talent, but actually it's a lack of trade-offs? What if discipline isn't something that you're born with, but something that you train? Today's guest went from martial arts at 6 to the US Air Force to leading multi-million-dollar turnarounds and then serving on corporate boards. But you know what? The lesson that changed everything was that he learned to take something away. Because growth in careers and in companies often isn't about adding more to your job. It's about choosing what to sacrifice. Great careers aren't built in the big moments alone. They're built in everyday choices, bold little moves, and gutsy next steps. Welcome to Little Moves, Big Careers. Let's dive straight in. Welcome to my guest for this week, Dr. Keith Dorsey. And in this episode, you're going to learn why discipline is built through trade-offs, not talent. And why so many people only start thinking about the boardroom when it's already almost too late. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you, Caroline. It's great to be here.
So, Keith, I want to talk to you about your career arc because you talked to me about it being in 3 phases.
I really do.
Going back to your teenage self, Keith, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you know?
I did. From the early ages, prior to being a teenager, I knew that I wanted to do something that required an awful lot of discipline, an awful lot of activity, physical activity, and so I used to beg my mother to let me go. There was a show called Kung Fu, and I was a martial artist. I started when I was 6, and I wanted to go live with the monks, and so and I really wanted to study Kung Fu and martial arts with the monks in Asia, and so that was option number 1. Option number 2 was...
You had a backup plan then, even at an early age?
At an early age, single digit age. And I wanted to go to military school.
Yeah.
And I just loved the rigor and the discipline and the physical activity from military school. And what was wrong with me? And my mom asked me the same thing. She said, "Do you not like me? Because you either want to move to Asia or you want to go to school full time at a military school." And I said, "No, Mom, that's not the case at all." But I knew as a teenager that I wanted to go in the military. The summer between my junior year of high school and final year of high school, my senior year, I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. And so I knew before I started my final year of high school that I knew the date that I was leaving for the Air Force, which was actually 6 weeks after I graduated from high school. And so I always knew as a young kid what I wanted to do. And I've been in the martial arts my whole life since the age of 6. And then I actually got to go in the military as well, which was
fantastic. Amazing. So
yeah.
You still do martial arts?
I still train on my own to stay in shape, but I no longer go to a dojang or a studio to study.
Amazing. Yeah. So you've clearly got inbuilt in you this real sense of discipline and rigor. Yes. How do you think that has helped you throughout your career? So you had a span of how long in the military?
It was 5 years active duty in the Air Force, and then I got out for 3 years, and then we went into Desert Shield, Desert Storm back in the early 90s. And at that particular point, I went into the National Guard, Air National Guard during that period of time, and then eventually got out. So that's my military career. How did it impact and what did I get from out of that? I had this strong sense of discipline that came from being in the martial arts and at an early age, and now I'm in my early 20s and then being in the military. And I remember at testing for rank in the Air Force.
Okay.
And before I tested, I was asked, uh, I had so many different things going on at that particular point. I was training for the British Tung Sudo Championship. I was going to school in the evenings to get my undergraduate degree, and I was testing for my next rank in the military, and I knew that all these things were pulling me, and I went to one of my martial arts instructors, and I asked him, what can I do to really focus on all these things I'm trying to accomplish at the same time? And he said, take away something from yourself that no one else can take away to build this discipline muscle. And I said, I don't understand. Give me an example.
No,
He
what do you mean by
said,
that?
yeah, he said, why don't you become a vegetarian? Do you like eating meat? I said, I love eating meat. I eat meat every single day. He said, take away that and for a week and just see if you can build this discipline muscle to take away something from yourself so that you can focus on the things you need to do in the way that you need to do it. And so I did that for a week. And I thought about eating meat 24 hours a day for those 7 days.
You wanted that steak.
I did. And I said, you know what? I want to try this for one more week, but I don't even want to think about eating meat.
Yeah.
And 9 years later,
You were still a vegetarian.
I was still a vegetarian. And I just built this muscle of being able to focus and make the trade-offs you need to make to do things. And I, continued on and eventually got my degree. I tested in the air for my next rank in the military, and I had the 19th highest score in the Air Force globally when I tested.
Congratulations.
And so that worked out right there as well.
You think about our world today, it is really hard to have discipline because there are constant distractions. There's so many influences. It's almost difficult to decide what bit should I be focusing on. And it's easy to get swayed by all of these external forces. And
Yes, it is.
what I found really interesting is that it was just part of who you
Yes.
were from a little child. You then
Absolutely.
learnt even more through doing things like martial arts, which really hones in on that discipline, respecting yourself and other people as well, isn't it?
Mhm.
Which I think
Absolutely.
is a really important part of it, because when you respect yourself and you respect other people, you are more likely to follow through on your promises.
Absolutely. And willing to do the things that you need to do when you need to do it, whether anyone else is watching or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But despite that, you still felt that there was more to learn.
Absolutely.
And you got that additional advice, which is incredible, because discipline is something within you. It's not an external influence. You can read about it and get tips and hints, but fundamentally, you have to want to be disciplined.
I agree with you, Caroline. You have to want to be disciplined and you have to exercise that muscle.
Yes.
And part of what was recommended was, to become that vegetarian for 1 week,
Yeah.
to exercise that muscle. And what I've learned about discipline is if you don't work it out, it will atrophy. Carolyn, we talk so much in business about making trade-offs.
Yeah.
And really, that's really what trade-offs are all about. Stop doing this to
Yeah.
enable you to be able to do that. And so that's the art of taking something away. And it's not easy for people to do, whether
No.
that's taking away sweets for a period of time, sugar, desserts and various things. Stop watching TV for a period of time so that
Yeah.
you can accomplish XYZ. That's
But isn't that key? Reflection.
Yeah.
If I want to improve,
yes.
I've got to constantly be analysing in the moment, am I using my best efforts?
Absolutely. And in my book, The Boardroom Journey, I write about 5 different capitals. And one
Okay.
of those capitals is commitment capital, where you truly look at your goals that you
Yeah.
have out there, and then you reverse engineer the things you need to do to actually get to your goal. And then you start to execute on the little things each day that you must do in a scaffolding sort of way to actually get to that goal. But at some point, you find you hit a roadblock
Mm.
and you can't get past that one little task. And the commitment capital is all about really analyzing what is causing that roadblock. Then you analyze, do I have the commitment to do the things and the trade-offs that I need to make in order to get past that one little area? And once you do, it's like a floodgate opens up and
Yeah.
you start executing on more things. And when people are able to pick a goal, reverse engineer, execute, and then uncover when they actually hit a roadblock, figure out a creative way to get past that roadblock, then they start to move towards their goal again.
Yeah.
And that's the commitment capital.
I'm big on commitment,
Mhm.
So in the past 12 months, I've been working on saying I promise. Because if
Mhm.
you're making promises to people, you're going to follow through. And I
There
have
you go.
noticed such a big difference this year. And it's such a little thing,
Yes.
isn't it? It's
Yeah.
language and what that language does to your psychology and your drive. So for me, commitment is really current.
Mhm.
You talked about roadblocks. I think once you hit a roadblock and you deal with that frustration and you're trying new things, once you get over it, your
Yes.
momentum can be so much more rapid
Absolutely.
because you feel so much more resourceful, don't you, Keith?
Oh, you definitely do. And your next goal is to seek small wins again, and which creates more momentum. And before you know it, you actually hit your goal.
I think one of the things that you said in all of this that has really struck a chord with me is the act of working out trade-offs.
Yes.
Because if I think about the people that I work with, every single one of them, without exception, has too many things on their to-do list. They're just, and if we're talking about being the best that we can possibly be, yes, we need to have discipline. Yes, we need to reflect, but we do need to look at trade-offs. We need to look at that list and work out, where am I adding the biggest value, making the most contribution?
Mhm.
And of those other things, what do I then do about them? Whereas I think I see so many people just going on the hamster wheel, just keeping on without
Absolutely.
without having that reflection and
And
working it
that's
out.
easy to do because that doesn't require more external thought.
No.
You're on autopilot. You just
Yeah.
keep moving forward. And I challenge people via coaching sessions, and I challenge myself here as well with this saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is a very good saying. So your first arc of your career was military. So after that period, what was the next phase of your career?
Question. The next phase was 29 years that I was in corporate America was all around sales. And during that period of time, I became a growth and a
Okay.
turnaround specialist. And I would move my family around from location to location, taking over some of the teams that were struggling the most.
Yeah.
And so I called it, if you're familiar with the term glass uh, cliff, you hear of glass ceilings where people hit the glass ceiling and they can't go beyond. Well, once you do make it beyond that glass ceiling and you're given a challenging opportunity that many people have already failed at and not many people actually want. Those are glass cliff opportunities. And that's what I built a career taking glass cliff opportunities that others didn't want, these challenging wicked problems, and I would take over teams and really lift up the hood and figure out whether or not if they were dealing with a people, a product or a process issue or a combination of the three, and then begin to make the necessary tweaks to turn the situation around and give the team the tools they need and the self-confidence they need and the resources they need to be successful, and then move on to the next opportunity. Leading very, very large sales teams, and to the point where we, depending upon the size of the organization, had double digit and sometimes even triple digit growth on an ongoing basis. And
So how did you find the shift from military to corporate America?
it really came down to being successful in the military, came down to discipline and having goals, reverse engineering those goals, learning how to lead other
Yeah.
people. And, I often say uh, leadership is really caring about the people that you lead, and being more interested uh, than interesting, and
Yeah.
helping people accomplish their goals. So I learned to really understand a person's personal motivations for doing something or wanting to do something, and professional motivations. And when I learned early on that if I help people accomplish their personal goals as well as their professional goals, the byproduct of doing those two things for everyone that reported to you or reported to the people that reported to you, it would be uh, success. Because leadership that you gain from being in the military is absolutely incredible and transferable.
Yes.
And I was able to transfer a lot of that to corporate America and really begin to lead groups by caring about them. And the
Yeah.
saying there is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And by really being genuinely interested in their personal motivations and goals and their professional motivations and goals, and helping via mentorship and coaching and guidance, helping them accomplish those things, they end up caring a lot about you as well
Yeah.
and your personal and professional motivations. And, I will build teams that had engagement scores that were off the chart because of the subculture that we were able to
Yeah.
create, this environment, a learning environment and an environment of achievement, because we care about each other,
Yeah.
to the point where we created a culture where two things were in place. Um, one was, if we had weekends off, I had an environment where we didn't reach out to one another during the weekend. They
Yeah.
wouldn't, if they didn't get voicemails from me back in the day over the
Yeah.
weekend, if it was something I wanted to say to them, I would jot it down, and at 7 o'clock Monday morning, I would leave them that voicemail. They didn't get emails from me
Yeah.
over the weekend either. If it was something that I wanted to say, I may have typed up the email, but I wouldn't hit send
Yeah.
over the weekend, because I wanted to create an environment of rejuvenation.
Yeah.
And we can, and it's important that we exercise our muscle or mental capacity, but you also have to give that brain a rest.
Yeah.
And the weekends, if you did get weekends off, was all about rest. And so if my direct reports weren't getting something like that from me over the weekend, they weren't doing the same to their direct reports. And so we will have this subculture. We also had a subculture of showing during our one-on-ones how much we care about individuals. And so if we have weekly one-on-ones that were somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour, the first 10 to 15 minutes of every one-on-one did not include any talk whatsoever about business.
Yeah.
It was a check-in.
Yeah.
And so once again, putting action and intentionality behind, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We
Yeah.
focus on that. And so by developing that subculture, our 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 turnover rate went way down.
Yeah.
Our production went way up. And so outside of making those necessary adjustments around people, product, and processes, we also made the adjustments in investing in relationship and trust. And it was those things that would create the turnaround situation that I was asked to make happen.
So you must have been going into teams that were highly demotivated. probably very cynical.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they are
Yes,
potentially being faced with shape up or ship out situation.
absolutely.
So what do you think the catalyst was to help turn these teams around?
One was to be able to take the time to go in to a organization and for the first 90 days, use what God gave us. 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yeah.
he he wanted us to listen twice as much as we talk. And so
Yeah.
I would walk in to every situation with a notebook
Yeah.
and a pen and really just sit and interview everybody to get a feel for where were they, where are they, and where do they want to go.
Yeah.
And before even sharing my thoughts around vision, mission, and values in the company, really hear from, do that check-in. Where are you? What made
Mm.
you take this position? What do you like most about it? What do you like least about it? Know what you know today. What will you do differently? And really getting a feel for where they are and what type of commitment do they have? And sometimes, unfortunately, what you uncover is that you have someone that really isn't a good fit and
Mm.
shouldn't belong on the team, shouldn't be a member of the team. And sometimes you have to let them go.
Yeah.
Other times you find you have people that are tremendously committed to it. They just don't have the competency.
Yeah.
And so in that scenario, you begin to put in the training modules and I believe a great manager and leader first tell someone what their job is, and then secondly, show them actually how to do it. And then
Yeah.
lastly, let them do it and observe it and help them remove obstacles along the way. And by doing that, you're actually teaching, you're not just giving them fish, you're teaching them how to fish.
Yeah.
And if their commitment level is high, their competency level wasn't, they eventually get to where they need to get to. But if their commitment level was non-existent and they don't show any signs of wanting to be committed, then creating an environment where they learn how to disengage themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they
Commitment
move
and
on.
competency, knowing that they're different,
Yes.
responding as a leader to them being different is so important, isn't it?
And so that's what I would do in every situation.
So you're in corporate America for 29 years. Tell us a story about one of the things that you're most proud of, Keith.
Learning those lessons that I learned during those 29 years, that being a strong leader isn't about doing.
Yeah.
Is really about understanding their motivations, helping them get there, helping them learn to do it themselves,
Yeah.
and really growing revenue in a way that the company never even expected, the board never even expected. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Some people need to see something happen before they can believe that it could be done.
Yeah.
And others can just believe it and then go make it happen. And that's the school of thought that I came from and that I come from, where if I believe that something can be done and then reverse engineer a plan
Yeah.
to actually get there and then truly execute and get past those roadblocks, that's so exciting. And
Yeah.
then to have a bunch of other people who are on your team hear your vision, mission, and values and subscribe to it, and we
Yeah.
all go after it together. Is that I love that during 29 years in corporate America. That brought me so much joy, and to bring so many other people with me that were able to buy the homes that they wanted to buy,
Yeah.
able to put their kids through college that they, the way they wanted to,
Tapping into
because
their
we
whys.
focused. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That brought me so much joy.
So after 29 years, you stopped doing that. What was the
Yes.
trigger for stopping that?
The trigger for stopping that really came down to in my third chapter, that problem of practice that I chose was around shareholder primacy. My company was acquired and we were a $2.5 billion business unit that became its own company. But as PE firms should, they should look for ways to continue to reduce costs. And to reduce costs, we were moving from two presidents and two heads of sales to one president and one head of sales. And my president was selected to not be there. And they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And I chose to leave and start a new chapter. And that's when I moved on to my third chapter, which was a portfolio career of doing a little of this, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that. And some of that was one, becoming an executive advisor and outsourced chief sales officer to help other businesses do the things they need to do to turn things around and to do it at the right time. And so I started doing consulting and executive advisory with us. And what I learned also in this portfolio career was that boards needed people with that strategic growth functionality and strength as well, because many boards are looking for ways to help their firms grow intentionally and to think differently, to do things differently to get even better results moving forward. And so that strength was interest of boards. And so I started serving on corporate boards in this third chapter, because what most executives, we have learned things throughout our career and we innately do things moving forward because of our human capital. But by going through my doctorate and really diving into governance the way that I was diving into it, I brought a different muscle to the equation. But then I also learned to be bilingual. As an executive, I was able to take what I was dissecting and researching for as an academic, but speak the language of business and break things down in a way that executives wanted to hear it. And that made me somewhat of a unicorn.
So when you started serving on boards, what were the things that contributed to a really good board or a dysfunctional one?
And it's a great question. I found that there were board members that were there because they were trusted, because they were a great name, but maybe weren't the right fit for the organization, or maybe not the right fit for where the company was moving towards. So, that saying is, what got you here won't get you there. They may not have the skill sets or the competencies that are necessary from at a board level to help them get to their strategic objectives moving forward. And so I was shocked by the number of people that were serving on boards that maybe didn't add as much value to the board like they used to. And the unwillingness of boards to really deal with the elephant in the room, because I learned that most boards selected people because they knew them already and they were friends of the family or friends at a health club or various other organizations. And because they were friends, they found it very difficult to let them go.
But you also think about how limiting that relationship is as well, because companies need diversity at the very top, people that think differently.
Yes.
If you think about who your customers are, you need to reflect that diversity in the boardroom.
Absolutely.
And if you're bringing in your friends, you're not going to be thinking strongly that you're so limiting your growth potential in it.
It's too one-dimensional. I mean, you're surrounding yourself with incredibly skilled people, accomplished people, but they were brought on not only for that reason, but because you trust them.
And they become echo chambers.
Absolutely. And that's where you get groupthink and have the intestinal fortitude to surround yourself with people that bring various different functional skills and competencies and have the willingness to tell you that you have spinach in your teeth. And that's scary sometimes in boards, because you meet so infrequently. that can slow you down when you
Yeah.
start to have differing perspectives. With differing perspectives comes many more questions that challenge assumptions, and that can take you off of your normal routine of getting stuff done in a
Yeah.
very efficient way. But are you getting the right things done? Are you
Yeah.
actually getting to the right outcome that's going to help you mitigate risk, help you better define blue oceans? And that's when you bring in differing perspectives from a group of people that represents your stakeholders.
Yes.
That's when you have something magical that
Yeah.
you could put together that can give you that strategic growth and mitigate the risk that you truly would like to do as an organization. Or it can help you do that when you take the time to refresh it with the right components that are more forward looking and less about where you've been.
Yeah.
And so that's what I focus on as a board member myself, coaching executives and senior government officials on as to how they can transfer their skill sets to what we call governance,
Yeah.
because governance is different from being an executive.
It's a
And
completely different context,
it
and
is.
it's important to adapt to the new context that you're in.
Absolutely. And the saying there is a good board member is fingers out, noses in, or heads in, hands out. That company has a management team that was selected for hopefully all the right reasons. Let them manage, but your job is oversight and management of that team, if you will, to a certain degree, of the leader, the CEO, and advisory as well as service.
Yeah.
And so when you bring that in as a board member, you can ask the thought-provoking questions to help the leadership team see things more broadly.
Yeah.
And that's a sign of a good board, to be able to do that.
What are the
Yeah.
skills that
Yeah.
young professionals who have an appetite to grow into these roles, what are
Yeah.
the skills they need to be looking at developing now in order to help them with that?
You heard me mention this earlier. The umbrella of it is around curiosity.
Mm.
But when you peel that back a little bit more, it's really the ability to be more interested than interesting.
Yeah.
um, you know, board members and those executives that go into these board roles are oftentimes very accomplished individuals. And that's what I would say being an accomplished individual is table stakes.
Mm.
But to be able to get out of your own way and not just to hear yourself talk or to be the most interesting person in the room or to ask tough questions just to catch them off guard, to say, I got you, I'm better than you. That's not a good board member. A- that's not a good board member. A good board,
Really?
a good board member is to put their ego aside,
Yeah.
recognize that they probably have walked a mile in their shoes, recognize that they are a student of the profession of governance, and they continue to learn about the industry, learn about what's going on in geopolitics and different things like that, and ask the right questions, not to catch them, but to get them to see things a little differently. And I said it before, be more interested than interesting. And really interested in what they're doing right, catch them doing things right,
Yeah.
and give them praise for it, what they may be overlooking by asking questions, because just by asking the question, change ensues. Whether they adopt, they are now moving from their narrow focus to something that's a little bit wider because you
Yeah.
asked the question. And a good person, a good leader will even slow down enough to say, hey, you just asked me a very interesting question that I've never been asked before. What made you ask me that question? Where were
Mm.
you going with that question? And what should I think about it? I'm going to answer your question, but now that I answered it, please tell me more about why you asked, because
Keith, I
that
love
opens the
that.
door.
I want to just bottle that because for me, that second level, third level thinking is the heart of reflection. It's the heart of self-awareness, isn't it? Because you're just constantly building that
Yes.
understanding about why people do what they do, which is really
Yes.
important.
Yeah. But a good board member, if you can ask questions that help people think about not so much what's around the very next corner or that S curve that you're driving,
Yeah.
but beyond that,
Yeah.
to be able to uh, begin to think about and see the forest through the trees,
Yeah.
and ask those high level questions to get people thinking about things a little differently, because what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah.
And so, are we doing the right things strategically? And am I thinking about the right things to mitigate the risk of things that might be around the corner?
Yeah.
And as board members, sometimes we get too focused on the negative things, the threats. What
Yeah.
will happen? This is important. Those threats are important, cybersecurity, supply chain issues, and things like that. But also, for every bad thing that's going on out there, if you really peel the onion back and think globally about it, there could be opportunities for
Absolutely.
growth as a result of that. And to be able to ask the right questions to not only uncover and mitigate the threats, but to also uncover and take advantage of the opportunities
Yeah.
is what a good board will do as
That
well.
makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because if you're under threat, often it throws you into a sense of panic, which closes down your creativity and curiosity
Absolutely.
muscles. So it
Absolutely.
is really important to just be able to step back and think about what are we missing here?
Absolutely. And in crisis mode, the C-suite may be in that mode and all they're thinking about is threat, 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 and do something about the crisis.
Yeah.
But if a good level headed board member can say, I understand where we are there and we definitely got to deal with that,
Yeah.
but let's flip this around. Others are going through the same thing. How do we utilize our internal strengths to take advantage of the opportunity that's as well? And just by asking that question, change can ensue as well.
I love that. Just by asking questions, change can ensue. That's so powerful. Thank you, Keith. There's been some really interesting topics that we've explored. And I love the fact, particularly, that you have teased your book by describing one of the 5 pillars. And I'm deliberately not giving you opportunity to talk about the other 4 because they're going to have to buy your book, aren't they?
I love
And
it.
the link will be in the show notes. Also, we'll link to Keith's website as well if there are people that are curious about boards. Lots of information there, and Keith would be very happy to have a conversation with you.
Small shifts, sharp impact. These are quick-fire career moves, real things you can do before your next coffee refill.
Before we leave, Keith, I would really welcome you sharing 2 or 3 nuggets of advice that you would like to have given or you would have liked to have received as your younger self for your career.
I talk a lot about career. I talk a lot about boards, and most people think about boards way too late in their career to really do things about it.
Yeah.
And just briefly in the book, I got 4 protagonists: a 25-year-old brand new manager, a 40-year-old senior manager, a 55-year-old executive who says she's going to retire in the next 3 to 5 years, and a 62-year-old second generation CEO of a family business who's been that CEO for 12 years and is about to hand the business over to her much younger brother. All 4 women at 25, 40, 55, and 62 said that they would like to serve on a private or a public corporate board at some point. Well,
Yeah.
what should you be doing at 25, 40,
Yeah.
55, and 62? And
Love
one
it.
of the things that and so at the end of every chapter, I bring in 2 to 4 of those protagonists to actually talk about how they executed the things that were taught in that chapter.
Fantastic.
Based on where they are. But, one thing that I will share with people early on is to figure out what brings you joy. Reflect like crazy. To figure out what brings you joy, to figure out your why,
Yeah.
and what's your secret sauce. that you really bring to the table? When you're successful, why? And what are your superpowers? When you succeed, why? When you fail, why? And to reflect on all those things. And when you then understand your strengths and why they're your strengths. And because once you understand that, you start to make certain that whatever you do next and that next promotion or whatever incorporates your top 5 strengths, it's at that time that work becomes so much more easier, so much more fun. And when you are intentional about doing things that bring you joy and are purposeful, the way you show up is completely different. And that's the secret sauce to when 2 exceptional people are going after the exact same job. The person that's in their sweet spot because they did their reflection shows up way better than the person who can do the job, but it might not be in their sweet spot. And so by taking the time to reflect on these things, no matter where you are in your career, and learning how to pick a goal, reverse engineer, and execute back to that commitment capital thing, you'll find that your corporate career takes off in such a way that it's not even fair to the others around you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that, Keith. I remember when I was in my 20s, it was just like, I'll have a go at this. Yeah, it's all right. Not sure. I'll have a go at that. I'll have a go at that. That was how I learned through experience, but it was the hard way.
Yes.
You know, I wasn't taught that I should be learning about myself and what I was good at that stage. So if there's one message that we can take from today, please take the time to learn about yourself.
Absolutely. And how you show up. And just because you show up a certain way today doesn't mean you get to tell everyone around you, hey, that's just me. Take it or leave it. No.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're showing up in a way that's not productive, then maybe learn to do something about it. And if you're showing up in a way that is productive, learn how to double down on that and use that as your secret sauce and superpower moving forward.
Brilliant. Keith, thank you so much for taking the time to share these wonderful lessons with us today. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Caroline. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Hopefully you'll invite me back.
So, what did you think of that? What struck me in this conversation wasn't discipline in terms of grit. It was how Keith made discipline a choice. He had the courage to take something away, to stop doing what no longer served him. And whether you're leading a team, building a career, or sitting on a board, the question isn't, can I do this? But more, should I? So until next week, make your move, even if it's tiny, especially if it's tiny.